Hey y'all, welcome to my channel. Welcome to my today's video. Um, Gonna just talk about again revisiting or talk a little bit more about the mass layoffs that are occurring right now at this point. Um, I haven't read entirely as to like the types of employees that are being laid off at both Google and Microsoft. Um, if it's a lot of tech workers, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but that really doesn't make sense. If it's more of HR slash more recruiters on them, okay, that kind of does make sense because like if they have a hiring freeze, it makes sense to like cut that off at that point as well. And two is maybe sales as well too makes up some sense as well too. But if it is tech workers like software engineers, that's a little surprising honestly. I mean, granted, still software engineers are making a lot of money nowadays in these tech companies like Alphabet, Meta, Microsoft, Amazon. It's just a question of how good, and I don't want to say how good they are, but it's more of a case of like forecasting seems not their best. They're not at their best when it comes to forecasting. Um, Quite honestly, you don't see. I know it's a possibility that they are, but I don't see it where Apple has these mass layoffs. I mean, you haven't seen any heard news or read news about mass layoffs from Apple, specifically during recession times as well, too. To be quite honest, I mean, it was during the time of not pre jobs, but like sort of that lull period prior to Jobs rejoining Apple, where people were leaving, left, or getting laid off because the company was losing revenue, all that stuff. But as a result, the company realized, you know what, focusing on hardware and software as well at the same time, and they knew how to hire the right amount of people and keeping it lean. Quite honestly, that's the one thing I think you got to do is you don't want to over hire. I've come to the realization sometimes you don't need to over hire or hire individuals just because need to grow a team to 40, 50 people basically, honestly. And some companies, some managers or C levels or want to get to that level, like, you know what, I have like 100,000 people or 50,000 50,000 people under my company. Same thing as like, it's more of a case like, do you need to manage over 50 people, over 60 people, or 100 people? I mean, honestly, for me, it's more of a case where I've come to the realization it's not a matter of managing the most people, it's more of managing efficiently with the most lean amount of people that you need. Because one of the things is like I say, is you want to hire people or hire for positions where it's not a case where they can do three jobs at once, but it's more of a case where like they are efficient, that they can write or automate for three people as one person. Case in point is like automatic deployment for software. Do you need 20 SREs to do this? Um, Honestly, I don't know. Do you need 20 QA people? For certain things, it's there's some possibilities where that's where regression testing comes into play. If developers are good enough, they know how to do regression testing. But of course, when you go to deployment, when you go to pushing out into well, there's like unit testing, of course, and then there's regression testing. But then there's the aspect case of QA testing, and the question is like, how efficient can you be as a QA tester? Honestly, do you need five QA testers when in reality maybe one or two can actually do it, where they know how to automate through software, through development, to basically test for test cases basically and create those test cases and then automate that in that aspect. It's one of those things where like I think we're seeing tech companies trying to do that, and then there are cases where yeah, of course, you need some aspects of people going into and basically managing it. But now with the advent of machine learning and AI, it's a question of there should be cases where now like not only for quality assurance testing, but there's also the case of like even for moderation, can also take into account and apply into that aspect as well too. Really, reality is you hire some machine learning engineers to write. efficiently for moderation of, like, for, let's say, in social media sites or forums. All right, like, hey, we know that it's a flame war going on. AI flags it, and then then you get a moderator, like a moderator. I mean, you don't have to have someone like constantly reading the thing. You let the AI handle it first, and then flag it, and then like the person look at it at that point. Um, uh, and of course, threat detection as well too, like security, cybersecurity aspects. I mean, machine learning can be used in that aspect as well too. I mean, I hate to say it, but yeah, cybersecurity does work. I mean, yeah, it plays into the uh, movies play into real life, where you might have a case of a Terminator situation, like Skynet, where you are building machine learning AI for cybersecurity, and then eventually it grows sentient, and then hey, it creates its own threat, so that it can be released out into the world, something like that. I mean, that's we're not there at this point, to be honest with you. We're still in AI is still in its infancy stage, so people freaking out about this, they don't know what they're talking about. We're still in its infancy. It's still in its infancy stage. AI has not come to a situation where it's becoming sentient, where it's becoming aware of itself. Honestly, if that did happen, then it's a question of, all right, at that point, if there was self awareness, what do you do at that point? There is containments at that point, but in reality, it's more of a case like it learns through data and such. But we're not at this point, to be honest with you. But again, coming down to as far as what should you do when you get laid off, I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know what to do. You reach out, you network. There are companies that are still hiring. The question is, do you take a pay cut to go for another company? I mean, now, yeah, you are competing with other engineers that have been let go as well too. And the question is like, what do you do about that? I mean, you got to compete with all these other people for something that you've done with one company. I mean, like, you have people at Alphabet, Microsoft, Meta, Twitter, Salesforce, high-end engineers, high-end software engineers doing whatever, probably the same exact thing. And now you've got, let's say you've got a team of 10 laid off from each of those companies. Now you basically, and let's say there's a company for one position that meets the criteria for everyone that's done that. You pretty much, for those 5 that I named, you got 50 resumes that you're coming in, and now you got to look and like filter out which one. And that those are people that are laid off. Then of course there's people that are still looking for the better opportunity at that point as well too, or those that want to grow at that point. And as a company where you have existing employees, how do you keep them? How do you keep them happy? How do you keep them for the long term? That's something. I mean, there was quite a number of books in place for that can handle for that. Basically, I mean, you could read for that. I think. I mean, I don't know. I've never. I'm not a manager that knows well enough, honestly, or someone that leads well enough to know. Quite honestly, there are cases where I've tried to be hands-offish and like I don't want to micromanage, but and I leave to the person to learn for themselves. And I will try to jump in and help out when they ask for the help, but it's more of a case where can you learn on your own? Because sometimes you got to be thrown into the deep water and learn how to swim on your own. But then, of course, there are cases where you do need some assistance, which people are there for, and I'm there. That's what I try to do. But at the same time, it's more of asking rather than pushing myself onto them. Like, I'm wanting to see where they will learn if they're willing to learn. I can't say this is like, unfortunately, and as an example, bad example was, I should have recognized to the point where like I thought I mentioned to the person like, look, I'm going to be hands-offish. I'm going to let you learn on your own, not realizing that this person actually needed to see how things were done. Whereas I thought this person could read first and foremost before showing them. Basically, I thought it was more of a case where like me and quite a number of people that I've worked with, where you learn on your own. Things you don't know, then you ask questions rather than viewing people and like seeing things done. Because sometimes it's one thing to see how it's done, but then seeing it in a repetitive case, I mean, then it's like you're just basically taking on that person's trait as your own. And I'll admit that I've done that in the past where I've taken, like I've watched some people do certain things, learned from that, but I've taken on upon their trait. In reality, I should have just read up on it, made my own decisions, and then worked with them and say, hey, how would you do this? Like, I'm having issues with this. How would I go about that, basically? I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, when it comes to data warehousing, doing a lot of dimensional modeling, star schemas or snowflake schemas. Um, it's more of a case where with the star schema, it works out to a point of um, I try to create the base more than anything else, but that commonality between it. But then the thing is, do you go the multi-tenancy route at that point? Honestly, I don't know. It's a possibility, but that's another aspect as well too that I'm not too keen on, quite honestly. Um, yeah, sorry. I just went off into a tangent there again as well too. Sorry about that. But again, coming back to if you're laid off and you're an engineer, what do you do? The other aspect, the other thing you can that works out and that could work on your favor is if there are a group of you, it's another possibility of maybe starting up your own company. I mean, if you're young enough, like if you're a millennial or a Gen Zer slash millennial, honestly, during these periods of time when there were like recession, when the recession occurred, specifically in the dot-com era as well as in the financial crisis, small groups of people basically that were laid off basically started to form up their own company and then they just built their companies. I mean, I'll give you an example of I don't want to say Airbnb or Foursquare or such from my day from those days, but there were quite a few companies that came out as a result of being laid off and such, or PayPal Mafia type of thing as well too. I mean, the PayPal different was a different thing altogether as well too, quite honestly. But anyways, um, that is another aspect as well too. But I'll say this though, um, from personal experience from way back when, do not let your skills erode. Keep up to date. Looking is one thing, and you just keep looking, of course, and applying, but at the same time, build up that repo that you have, or multiple repos. Just start coding away and start creating those repos and start creating those tool sets. Letting people like review those tool sets. I mean, for what we know, is like building something for your own self, for your own purpose, or to learn something. This might give you time to learn something new at the same time as well too. I mean, like some people, they were more of C++ or Java people, and they never just got a chance to learn Go or Rust. And they didn't have the time to. Now's the time to maybe learn new languages or new tech, get more into the cloud. If you haven't been in the cloud, maybe now's the time to getting into the cloud. If you're into the web development end, maybe you start learning a little bit more on the back end development as well too. And more specifically, I would say in this case, if you're a millennial or Gen Z, or quite honestly, for me as a person, for those that came out from college, were really weak on this. Is maybe learn some SQL. SQL is still a powerful tool, powerful language. I mean, powerful language. Learn some SQL. By learning some SQL, you know how to actually develop to talk to the back end of data stores, or specifically databases. Actually, sorry, databases. Um, some people are saying, "Oh no, NoSQL is more better than like learning SQL, and like you don't really need to learn relational database." But in reality, no, relational databases are never going to go away. Um, and put it this way, things have a tendency to recycle themselves. I mean, honestly, like mainframes were the one big thing, and then became the TCP client network architecture or network client server architecture. But in reality, think about the net as being one big mainframe at this point as well too. Quite honestly, it's just a more extended version of the mainframe. And now you got Web3 come into the aspects as well, and that's another aspect of learning technologies of blockchain. Like learn blockchain. You might want to get into blockchain a little bit as well too. I mean, you never had the time. Now's maybe the time. Um, but again, yeah, at the same time, yeah, you do want to, start, getting into things. And of course, there's Fiverr, freelancers, and all those other stuff for for, the temporary consulting gigs, basically at that point, I mean, it's supposed to be the gig economy in a ways and the creator economy, but I mean, you could also create the creator economy as well, too, and like try to do something like what I'm trying to do basically is like sort of create a podcast. Um, I would love to talk to people as well too. Discuss about like what are things to do, basically like how to get through things, specifically through layoffs for specifically for those that are the Gen Zers and millennials. For those that are Gen Xers and older, we've gone through this maybe once or twice already. So it's a case of like, teaching others how to get through this at this point. Honest, and the only time I don't want to say the only time, but the times that I've had where it's happened to me is more of a case where it was got laid off, tried to do something on my own, and then like learned a little bit more technology, other platforms, other tech stacks, and then found a job like a year later or something like that. And places I've been at where people were laid off during some sort of recession or such. I mean, they ended up pivoting themselves as well too. To be quite honest, sometimes some of them pivoted from what they were to something completely different, and they started enjoying it as well too. So that's another aspect as well too. But again, this is something I don't think I have the right to say. It's only just a matter of my meaningless advice. I want to say I don't want to say it's meaningless, but it's some formative advice. I mean, you'll hear others almost saying the exact same thing that I'm saying in ways too. But I would say this: even though things may look tough, it will get better. You will be able. You will find another job. You will find something that you will enjoy working at, and things like this always happen for a reason. Put it that way. Things like this always happen for a reason for you. So long as you think positive, things will look good for you at that point as well too. And like I said, sometimes it might be the best for you because you might come out stronger, aware, but also at the same time be more focused on maybe starting something on your own or pivoting to something completely different. But with that, let me know your thoughts. Leave a comment. I do read my comments and I respond to them when I get notified, of course. But with that, I'll leave it at that. And I ask that you do subscribe as well too. Please subscribe if you can, if you wish to subscribe. If I do hit 1,000 subscribers, I found out if you hit 1,000 subscribers, then you are able to live stream from a mobile device. I'd love to live stream from a mobile device versus having to live stream from a laptop. And again, million followers. I will do a live trending. I will live stream. Live stream a trending dance at that moment in time, for an hour or 30 minutes. I don't know. I'll leave the poll for you guys how long I should do that for. And if I hit 10 million users, of course, I'll leave it as a poll, live streaming dance at a location of your choosing, basically. But with that, I'll leave it at that. Until next time, unfiltered, unedited, and unrehearsed. And good luck to you guys. And again, always think positive.